Welcome back, Nightdwellers, to another episode of Simple Dark Stories. I'm your host, Mothy, and tonight we continue our journey with Dancing Embers Part 2. Last we left Talulla and Lynette, the flames of the campfire twisted into something far more sinister. As the smoke woman takes hold, the line between reality and nightmare begin to blur. Tonight we witness the fallout, Lynette's fate, Talulla's fear, and the dark spirits that claim them both. So settle in and be careful where you tread. Some flames burn hotter than others, and in this forest, not everything can escape. Talulla slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt just inches from the figure. Her hands shook on the wheel as she stared in disbelief. The Lynette on the road looked exactly like her friend, the same auburn hair, the same clothes, but her face was pale, gaunt, her eyes wide with fear. Talulla's mind raced. How could this be? How could Talulla be both sitting beside her and standing in the middle of the road? She turned her head slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. The Lynette sitting in the passenger seat turned to face her, a slow, twisted smile spreading across her face. "It's too late," she whispered, her voice a sickening echo of Lynette's. "She's mine now." Talulla's blood ran cold. She whipped her head back towards the road, but the second Lynette was gone, vanished into the night like a wisp of smoke. Without thinking, Talulla hit the gas, the car lurching forward as she sped away from the spot. Her only thought was to escape, to get as far away as possible from whatever was sitting beside her. As they drove, Talulla's mind raced. The person, no, the thing, sitting next to her wasn't Lynette. It couldn't be. The real Lynette was gone, taken by that smoke woman. Her body was now nothing more than a vessel for something dark and ancient. When they reached Lynette's apartment, Talulla parked the car, her hands trembling. She glanced at Lynette, or what was left at her, and felt a wave of nausea rise in her throat. "Let's go inside," the creature said, its voice smooth, casual, as if nothing had changed. Talulla nodded unconsciously, forcing herself to follow it up the stairs. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of the truth was pulling her down. Inside the apartment, everything looked the same. Lynette's apartment was just as Talulla had remembered it, familiar and warm. Except now, it felt alien, wrong. The creature that wore Lynette's face moved through the room with unsettling ease, as if it belonged there. Talulla watched, her heart pounding in her chest, every instinct screaming at her to run, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not knowing if there was anything left of her friend. "Are you going to stay?" the creature asked, turning to Talulla with a smile that made her skin crawl. I need to go home," Talulla stammered. "I need to sleep." The creature's smile faded slightly, but it didn't press. "All right," it said, its tone eerily calm. "But we'll talk soon, okay?" Talulla nodded, unable to find her voice. She fled the apartment, her pulse racing as she hurried down the stairs, the walls closing in on her and the air thickening with every step. She burst into the open air, her heart pounding, but the dread that had settled in her chest refused to lift. Back in the car, Talulla sat for a moment, staring blankly at the steering wheel. Her mind was a chaotic mess, torn between the need to escape and the guilt of leaving Lynette behind, if any part of her was still there. Finally, she started the engine and drove home. The city streets eerily quiet in the early hours. When she reached her apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion pulling her into a restless sleep. Nightmares plagued her, visions of the smoke woman, of Lynette's hollow eyes, and the creature's cruel smile. When she awoke, the sun was already setting, casting her apartment in a warm glow that felt too inviting, too deceptive. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Talulla glanced at it, her stomach churning when she saw a text from Lynette. "Can we talk?" Talulla's breath caught in her throat. She knew she couldn't avoid this forever, but the thought of facing that thing again filled her with dread. Still, a small part of her clung to the hope that maybe, somehow, Lynette could be saved. With trembling fingers, she typed out a response. "Okay, let's meet at the park near your place. I can be there in 30 minutes. The reply came almost instantly. "See you soon." Talulla's hands shook as she set the phone down. She had no plan, no idea how to confront the creature or how to save Lynette, but she knew she couldn't run anymore. She had to face this, no matter how much fear clawed at her chest. The drive to the park felt like it took an eternity. The city streets blurred as Talulla's mind raced, every terrible possibility playing out in her head. What if it wasn't Lynette waiting for her? What if she was walking into a trap? What if she was too late and there was nothing left of her friend to save? When she arrived, the park was nearly deserted, the setting sun casting long shadows across the grassy field. Talulla parked the car and walked to the bench by the duck pond, their usual spot. Her heart pounded as she sat down, her eyes scanning the park for any sign of Lynette. A figure emerged from the shadows, walking slowly towards her. It was Lynette. Talulla's breath caught in her throat. Lynette looked the same as always, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, her green eyes bright and clear. But there was something wrong, something unsettling with the way she moved. Too smooth, too deliberate. "Hey," Lynette said, sitting beside Talulla on the bench. Her voice was warm, concerned as though nothing had changed. "You haven't texted me all day. I've been worried about you." Talulla forced herself to meet Lynette's gaze, searching for any sign of the creature lurking beneath the surface. She wanted to believe this was her friend, but she knew better. "I've had a lot on my mind," Talulla replied. Lynette nodded, her expression sympathetic. "I understand, but I'm here for you, Talulla. You know that, right?" The words were familiar, comforting even, but they rang hollow in Talulla's ears. She couldn't trust them, not anymore. "Lynette, I know you're not her." Lynette's smile faltered for a moment before she composed herself. "What do you mean?" "I'm right here, Talulla. I'm the same as I've always been." "No, you're not," Talulla said, shaking her head. "I saw what happened at the campsite. You're not Lynette." For a moment, the thing wearing Lynette's face was silent. It stared at Talulla, its eyes unblinking. Then slowly, it reached out and took Talulla's hand in its own. The touch was familiar, warm, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. "Talulla," it said softly. "I am Lynette. I've just changed, but it's still me. You have to believe that." Talulla pulled her hand away, standing up from the bench. "No," she said, her voice trembling. "You're not her. You're something else, something that took her from me." The creature sighed, a sound so human, so heartbreakingly familiar that it almost made Talulla doubt herself. But then it looked up at her, and for a split second, Talulla saw something flicker in its eyes, something dark and malevolent, something that didn't belong. "I didn't want it to be like this," the creature said, standing. "You leave me no choice." Before Talulla could react, the creature lunged at her, its movements unnaturally fast. Talulla stumbled back, her heart racing as she tried to defend herself. But the creature was too strong, its grip like iron as it pinned her to the ground. "Lynette's gone," it hissed, its voice no longer soft and warm, but cold and venomous. "She belongs to the forest now, to the spirits that dwell there, and soon so will you." Talulla struggled, her mind racing as she tried to think of a way out, but the creature's grip was unyielding. The air grew thick around her, suffocating, just like it had at the campfire, and a panic surged in her chest. Then, in the distance, she heard something, a voice faint but unmistakable, calling her name. "Talulla." That concludes today's episode. Join us again next week for another spine-tingling tale on Simple Dark Stories. If you enjoyed this and would like to help out, please give us 5 stars and tell us what haunts your dreams. Until next time.